If you are looking for banking privacy in Asia, where can you go to achieve this? Now, I just want to say at the outset, this video isn't about how to hide money or encouraging people to hide money. We're not promoting anything illegal, and the chances are if you do try to hide money, you probably will get caught at some stage. That said, many of us still do value our privacy. We live in a world today where we are under constant surveillance, it seems, where there is a loss of individual rights. The countries that we live under are increasingly taking direction from globalized institutions, and the interests of these global institutions doesn't always align with the interests of the individual. There seems to be a constant and concerted effort to undermine the privacy of individuals, no matter where you live. Some places are worse than others, as we all know. So what we're talking about here is the Common Reporting Standard, CRS, it's often referred to as. And before we get into it, we are talking about CRS here, we're not talking about FATCA. FATCA is the data sharing mechanism that governs banks dealing with US citizens. So we're not talking about that, we're talking about CRS, which is pretty much every other country who has signed up to it. So what is the CRS? Well, the Common Reporting Standard was set up, implemented by the OECD, who else, in 2014. It's all about the automatic exchange of information between banks and various tax authorities. So if you are a resident of a country that is a member of the CRS, who has signed up to the CRS, and you do banking in a different country that has also signed up to the CRS, then that bank in that different country will report your financial affairs back to your country of residence, to the government, to the tax authority there. And what do they share? Well, they share all kinds of information, pretty much everything associated with your bank account. It will have your personal information such as name, address, date of birth, your tax identification number. And of course, there will be financial information such as bank account numbers, transaction details, balances, who the payees were. Pretty much anything that your bank knows about you can be sent back to your country of residence under the CRS. This is one of the reasons why when you are setting up an offshore bank account, they will always ask, where is your country of residence? Where do you pay tax? All right, so if you are looking at Asia, this is our part of the world that we deal with. Who has signed up to the CRS? So we have China, and that includes Hong Kong. There is Indonesia, Japan, South Korea, Malaysia, Singapore, Taiwan, and Thailand, who actually only just signed up in September of 2023. They're a very new addition. Now, if you are interested in which countries in Asia have not signed up to the Common Reporting Standard, here they are. We have Cambodia, Laos, Myanmar, North Korea, Philippines, and Vietnam. So there are still quite a few countries in Asia that have not signed up to CRS. So what does it actually mean when a country signs up to CRS? Well, just because a country has signed up to CRS doesn't necessarily mean there's going to be automatic exchange of information, doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be effective exchange of information. The system still does have many challenges, such as systems capability. You may suspect that some countries that have signed up to the CRS may not quite have the level of system capability required in order to share vast amounts of information at scale. And then with some countries, there may be some issues around the willingness to share. Some of these banks may have stretched resources. Yes, they've signed up. They may have been pressured at the international level. They may have just ticked that box to save face on the international stage to avoid any pressure that was being exerted on them by these globalist bodies. But in reality, it might just not be a priority for them. How any of these challenges may be reflected in the effectiveness or the amount of data that is shared is very hard to say. What I think you can say is that over time, system capability will improve, and over time, the trend is that international pressure to cooperate will increase. So yes, there are challenges with the CRS, but you cannot rely on any of this stuff to stay in the clear. You really have to operate under the assumption that your data is being shared. So we'll wrap it up here, guys. I just want to say again before we finish that we do not support using the CRS or its shortcomings to try and hide money. The days of being able to hide money are over. You might have gotten away with it in the 80s and the 90s, not anymore. And if you're getting away with it today, the chances are that in the future, you will not be able to get away with it. You have to operate within the rules and within the framework if you want to avoid this coming back to bite you. But I also do value my privacy, and I'm not so comfortable with countries, sovereign countries, taking direction from an international body, which seems to be the way things are going. All these global rules, global minimum tax, global data sharing. We are increasingly being governed at a global level, and I don't think that is good for any country. Privacy really is something that you do have to fight for if you believe in it, because the loss of privacy tends to be a one-way street. Once it's gone, it is very hard to get it back. So you really do have to fight to retain what level of privacy you can. Otherwise, we all end up living in a surveillance state like it's 1984.